Hello, and welcome to the Sage's Library. I am your host and sage, Trevor Devall, and for those of you who don't know me, I in fact sound nothing at all like this, so I'm just going to drop the accent. But hello, welcome to the premiere episode of the Sage's Library, a little series I've been promising for some time. Well, here it is, and here we are, in the library. This is a series where I'm going to, not entirely at random, but almost at random, pick various games that I've had some experience with over the many years that I've been playing and GMing. And just talk about them and talk about my experiences with them and fond memories and some rules things and all that kind of stuff. But this is not a review show. I mean, it's sort of a review show, but it'll all be positive reviews because every game that I have on my shelf, I like. So, or actually, there's probably one or two that I don't, but maybe we'll get to those one day. But to start off with today, I want to start with a very special game, and it's a very special game for a number of reasons. One, I've never actually played it. I've only observed it, read it, looked at it, analyzed it, studied it, but I've never actually played it. And the second thing is I'm going to be using it in the third season of Me, Myself, and I, which is, at the time of this recording, in pre-production. So very excited to introduce you to a little game called Dominion Rules. Now, this is a fascinating game because it is very obscure. Not a whole lot of people know about this game. But I do. This game is absolutely free to get online. I think it's dominionrules.org. This is a printed copy that I got on Lulu, which you guys can get one if you want, but there's no official sponsorship there. I have nothing to do with Lulu or vice versa. That's just where I got it from printed. What I like about this game is that it is simple in its execution. Its system is actually very simple. It's based on a D12 roll. That's it. Your D12 roll, the oft neglected D12, your D12 roll determines pretty much everything you do. It is a very simple seeming system on the outside, but there is some lovely granularity that you can get into, especially when you get into combat and things like this. So, Dominion Rules. You have, if you look at the character sheet here, you have your basic stats. You've got your vigor and agility and intuition and all these kind of things. And under those stats, you have a series of skills. This is a skill-based game. So everything you do is going to be about the skills. So every skill goes under a stat. And in order to make the skill roll, you have to roll that number or less, and you succeed. But you want to roll high. This is what a lot of people call the blackjack system. So if my skill is 5 on a D12, I want to roll 5 or less, but if I roll 5, that's better than rolling 3 in most cases. So you want to roll under, but roll high. That's basically the meat of the whole system right there. And what I also like about this game is that it's very open and fluid in terms of what you can do with it. You can create any skill you want and slot it in under one of these stats so that you can basically personalize the game however you want to do so. And in fact, what I'm doing is I've added an additional, what they call a composite stat. And I'll get back to my addition, my little house ruling in a second. But composite stats are combinations, they're averages of a couple of stats. So for example, your combat composite is an average of your vigor and your agility, I believe. And that number determines your baseline skill level for all your combat skills. And from there, you can increase your skills however you want. So if you want to be particularly good at striking, great, you increase that skill. Or if you want to be really good at dodging or something, you can increase that skill. But everybody starts at the baseline combat composite. Then there's priestcraft for priests, clerics, and then there's witchcraft for wizards, magicians, that kind of thing. But what I'm adding is a social composite because what this game doesn't have a lot of is social stats. And for those of you who've seen my show, I really enjoy those kind of rules where, the character has to convince someone or persuade them or inspire them or something. I like there to be some sort of rule that helps negotiate that in the game. So this game makes it very easy to do. Basically, I've added a composite stat called the social stat. It is a combination of intuition and intellect, and that will govern all of your 5 social stats, which are persuade. I was about to say perspire. That's not a skill. That's just something I'm doing. Persuade, inspire. That's why I was thinking. Persuade, inspire, deceive, command, and what's the other one? Intimidate. Intimidate can also be a vigor skill, or you could even develop that separately if you want to, be an intimidating because you're a big, huge guy or whatever. Anyway, so that's basically my little house rule for the game. That's about it. Everything else is going to be pretty much as is written in the book. So here's the thing about the combat system that I really like. First of all, it's what a lot of people call a death spiral system. A lot of people hate that. I love it. What that means is you don't really have hit points. I mean, you kind of do. But you have basically a small buffer between you and serious damage. What Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay kind of does with their wound system. We'll get to Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay eventually in this series. But everyone has like a small little buffer of points you take before you start suffering serious injury. In this case, it's literal injury penalty. So let's say that my withstand injury stat, which also doubles as my hit points basically, or my injury stat, let's say it's at 4, okay? That means I've got 4 hit points, and anything below that is gonna start causing me penalties. So if I take a 6-point wound, that means, and I'm at full, I'm at 4, that means now I'm down to -2. That means everything I do is at -2. That's obviously bad on a D12, because there's not a huge amount of range in a D12. So it's bad. So what that means is that combats are over quick. And I like that. And also it means combats are over quick, but they're not necessarily lethal. Most of the time, if you get hit with a bad injury, you're going to be incapacitated from that before you die from it. Which I kind of like, because it means that combats are brutal and fast and scary, but not necessarily fatal all the time. So especially when you're playing a solo game where you have one character, like I've been doing, it's a little bit of a safety buffer there. So that's kind of nice. But to talk about the combat system for just a second, what I really like about the combat system is there is initiative of a sort. It's called timing. Everybody makes a timing roll every round. But here's the thing, and this isn't revolutionary. This, there have been others who have done this, but I really like this. I think it's really cool. There's phases in a round. There's the timing roll. You make your timing roll. Then there's the strategy phase, the modifier phase, and the resolution phase. The strategy phase is everybody declares what they're going to do, and you can declare anything you want. If you want to declare 3 strikes against a dude, fine, you can do it, but every additional action past the first costs you a -1 penalty. So the more you try and do in one round, the harder it's going to be for you to do any of it. So you roll your timing, and then the strategy phase, you declare. But here's the cool thing. You declare your strategy in order of lowest timing to highest timing, which means if you're slower, you declare first so that the person who's faster gets the advantage, because now they can kind of react to what you're doing because you're faster than them, right? Or they're faster than you, rather. It's really neat. So if you roll a timing of 3 and I roll a timing of 6, you declare first, which means that I then I declare my strategy based on what you've declared, which is kind of neat. And you roll timing every round, so that could totally change, right? And timing's affected by the armor you wear and the weapons you're using, all that kind of stuff as well. So there's all kinds of little details in there that are very easy to use at the table. They don't bog the system down very much, which is, again, something I really like. Strategy phase, everybody declares from lowest to highest. Then modifiers. Modifier basically means if you're doing anything defensive, typically. So if I've declared that I'm going to parry your blows, then during the modifier phase, I roll my parries. And if I succeed, that means that during the resolution phase, you're going to take a penalty based on how well I did. So if I rolled a 3 on my parry, that means if you're going to strike me, you get a -3 to hit me because that was the parry roll, okay? So defensive stuff happens during modifier phase. Then there's resolution phase. Resolution phase is where the stuff actually happens. The blades come in, the parries happen, the screaming starts, all that stuff. But in the resolution phase, we resolve in order from highest timing to lowest timing. So again, if you're fast, not only are you going to be able to sort of anticipate what your opponents are doing, but you're going to act before they do, which could screw up their plans. So it's pretty cool. And again, timing changes every round. So it's not like if you have a great timing score, you're automatically going to go first every round, right? So it's really neat. You kind of have to keep track of things a little differently from those of you who are used to a game like D&D, which is very basic. You roll the initiative, it's a static initiative, and every round everybody goes, and you roll the hit, you roll damage, blah, 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 blah. Nothing like that. So I'm not going to go into too much more detail about that. Then in the book, they go into priestcraft rituals and prayers and being a supplicant to your god to try and channel their power. And then they go into witchcraft, which is all kinds of things, sorcery and arcana and summoning and the whole bit. And then there's, the typical bestiary and things like this. So this book is pretty solid in terms of its core mechanic, in terms of its core gameplay. It doesn't give you a ton of bells and whistles. There isn't a bunch of special rules for, mounted combat or anything. Basically, it just says, wing it, ruling's not rules, as some people say. So if I'm attacking, if I'm charging on a horse, then maybe I get a +2 to my skill to hit you, whatever, right? You wing it based on the details of that particular circumstance, which again, I kind of like, because it frees you up to create on the fly, but still create within an existing structure that is all cohesive. So that's pretty cool. But that's basically it. That's Dominion Rules. As I said, it's totally free. Anybody can get it at dominionrules.org. It's been out for a long time. I forget exactly when it was published, but it was a while ago. I don't think it's available on DriveThruRPG because it doesn't have to be. You could just go to their website and download it for free. Anyway, it's really cool. I'm very excited about using it. I'm very excited about learning how this combat system works with its different resolution and modifiers and strategy phases and things like this. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very different. And I'm looking forward to that. So thanks so much for checking out this premiere episode of the Sages Library. When I come back, I'll be talking about one of the many other hundreds of games that I have on my shelf that I've been using either as a GM or as a player over the years. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you enjoy what I've done here today. And down below in the links, there's a list of DriveThruRPG links to all of the supplements and game systems that I've used in Me, Myself, and Die up to this point. So if you buy something off of that, I get a little tiny kickback. So it's a good way to support the show. And also there's merchandise for sale down there. And of course, the big one, if you want to help support the show on Patreon, there's a link for that below as well. I love my patrons. They're so helpful. They're so great. We have a lot of interesting conversations happening on the Patreon pages. I provide a lot of special stuff, kind of behind the scenes stuff for my patrons. So if you want to get in on that, by all means, check out that link. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me here in the Sages Library.